it is very important. It's essential for them to understand that their job is not just to run A/B tests. A large proportion of their work should be dedicated to change management. If you really want to thrive with your experimentation program and you really want to grow as a whole company into an experimentation culture and thus really grow as a whole company in its results and in total, you will not get there by simply running A/B tests. Your job is to really motivate, involve, and get others on board.
Hello and welcome to Experimentation Masters, the leading resource for business experimentation. Join fellow innovators, strategists, and entrepreneurs to learn practical tips, methods, and techniques from world-leading experts in experimentation. Design better experiments, lead with more confidence, and have greater impact in your organization. Now please welcome your host, Gavin Bryant.
Hello and welcome to the Experimentation Masters podcast. Today, I would like to welcome Ruben de Boer to the show. Ruben is the lead conversion consultant at Online Dialogue. He's been working in experimentation and optimization for more than 10 years, with a portfolio of world-class clients, including Vodafone and eBay. Ruben also conducts online coaching and education through his company Conversion Ideas, which has touched more than 7,000 students around the globe. In this episode, we're going to discuss a change management model that Ruben has developed, which helps organizations to manage the business change process for experimentation more effectively. Welcome to the show, Ruben.
Thank you, Gavin, and thank you for having me.
Great to have you here tonight. And I thought we'd make a start by just getting you to share your background and journey with experimentation today.
Sure. So, like I said, my name is Ruben, and I've been in the business of data and optimization since 2009. I think I did my first A/B test in early 2011. In 2009, I was helping a company that teaches people to become happier, more confident with improved social skill. And at that time, I really learned the importance of helping and inspiring others with doing what you love. But also was fascinated with the question that if we can change the behavior of people offline through coaching, how can we do this online? So I really started getting an interest in psychology and human behavior and changing it for the better. Furthermore, I have always been a data guy. I love data courses or lessons much more at school than languages. And I really enjoy optimization, have an optimization mindset. So the combination of this, all of my interest, of my passions, kind of naturally led me into the field of conversion rate optimization. Many years later, these days, I've worked with many clients, great people around the globe, and I'm really happy to help people learn and excel in conversion rate optimization through my company, Conversion Ideas.
Awesome. So thinking more broadly now, what are your guiding principles that you've developed over the years and your philosophy around experimentation?
Well, of course, there are several guiding principles which you can find in many blogs and articles and books, like data first, challenge assumptions, be curious, be customer-centric. But let me mention, let's say, three important ones here, which are maybe often by some forgotten. First of all, I always like to keep in mind a simple formula for the return of investment of your experimentation program. So the return of investment is the quantity times the quality divided by the costs. And the quantity is simply the number of experiments you run. If you run more experiments, you'll find more winners or losers. You will learn more, and that's, of course, very beneficial for you, for your team, and the organization. Quality is simply the number of winners you find or the number of losers you prevent, and the win rate, of course, with all the correct statistics and stuff, so you don't run into false positives, etc. And the cost is simply the efficiency of the team. So when you're aware of this and you keep this in mind, especially if you are the one who runs the program, the process, when you're aware of this, you can always structure your work and your progress and keep optimizing the program itself, optimization program. So that's one. Two others. Always align with business goals. I see a lot of CRO teams, a lot of CRO specialists who are sitting in the back of the office and doing small copy changes, for instance. But do align with the business and show that experimentation can really help those business goals, really grow the whole business and involve others. Your job is not just to run A/B tests. You want to really get to the culture of experimentation. You have to involve others, especially also higher management, involve them as soon as possible. So those would be 3 guiding principles.
So, a quick question on quantity and quality. Do you see teams sometimes they make the mistake of prioritizing quantity over quality?
What I generally see with my clients that it's actually the quantity that's lacking. Usually, when I start with my clients, the quality is okay. They have a reasonable win rate. In some cases, it's not the case. Then I make changes there, better research, add a psychologist, think more about what we learned in an experiment. But in general, it's the quantity that's the bottleneck. Too many meetings about a design before it's been tested. Too many people involved. Too many design iterations, etc., etc. Generally, it's the quantity that needs to go up, and the quality is reasonable for most clients. So, but it's again, if you keep this formula in mind, you can see for your own organization, what should I do? If the win rate is, let's say, sufficient, 25% or higher, 1/3, then really focus on the quantity. Get those bottlenecks out of the way. Make your design less perfect. It should match the hypothesis, but not 10 colleagues should have an opinion on it. Have discussions about data. Increase the quantity. That's what I generally see.
What are some of those common bottlenecks that you see with your clients?
It's generally too many people involved. I mean, especially when you look at the design, it's a matter of taste, and you never get a design that everyone absolutely loves. So as a CRO specialist or someone responsible for experimentation, you have to ensure that the design matches the hypothesis of your experiment and then go. And don't ask 10 other people. It's better to have a discussion after the experiment because you have the data. Maybe it's inconclusive. Then you had all these meetings, all these discussions for nothing.
Mm-hmm. Design by committee does not work up front.
Exactly.
And just before we move on, so thinking more broadly, you mentioned that experimentation doesn't operate in a bubble, that there's broad stakeholder engagement and management required. So what are some of those key things to do to ensure that stakeholders are engaged, particularly senior stakeholders?
It really depends on, but I guess we'll get to that during this interview. It really depends for each company. You know, I sometimes hear like bold statements that if you want to involve higher management, always talk money. That could work for some managements, but companies that really thrive at experimentation, they do not want to see the business case of every experiment you run. They simply see experimentation as a way of better decision making. So, and in some cases, it works to talk money. And in some cases, the higher management should be involved differently. For instance, test their ideas and show the importance of experimentation, or involve them, get them to a brainstorm session. It's different per company. So the experimentation mindset we have, we also used within our own companies. See how you can involve higher management. See how you can involve other colleagues. Should you send update emails? Should you invite them for brainstorm sessions? Should you simply sit with them and try to achieve their goals with experimentation instead of your own goals? It's different per organization, but involvement is always important.
Good point. So thinking about some of the key challenges that businesses experience with managing the change process with experimentation, what are some of those challenges that you observe in your work with clients?
Good question. I would like to state two main challenges. The first one starts with the mindset and the beliefs of the CRO specialists themselves, or the ones responsible for experimentation. It is very important, it's essential for them to understand that their job is not just to run A/B tests. A large proportion of their work should be dedicated to change management. if you really want to thrive with your experimentation program and you really want to grow as a whole company into an experimentation culture and thus really grow as a whole company in its results and in total, you will not get there by simply running A/B tests. Your job is to really motivate, involve, and get others on board. That's when your CRO program really starts thriving. So your job is not just to run A/B tests, it's also change management. And a large proportion should be dedicated to change management. Another challenge is obviously, an obvious one is legacy. I mean, companies and people, some companies, people have been working in those companies for many years with the same culture, same mindset, and same way of working. And it's really hard to change that.
Yeah, two really good points there, that you don't overestimate status quo, and also managing that change process more broadly. So I previously read that when thinking about organizational change, you'd highlighted System 1 and System 2 elements that are really important to that change process. Could you provide listeners with a little bit of an overview of those System 1 and System 2 elements, please?
Yeah, of course. I can talk hours about this topic, obviously. Let's briefly start with the beginning, because I was generally, for organizational change, but also personal growth and personal development, I was fascinated with one shocking study that really got me thinking, and also working with change management and with this model. It's a study from 2005 by Dr. Edward Miller, and it is a study on patients with clogged arteries. And this is a serious condition. It hurts terribly, and it leads to a premature, painful death. And actually, all these patients with clogged arteries, they can survive. It's actually, the solution is pretty simple. They need to change their lifestyle. They should stop smoking, stop drinking, eat healthy, start exercising, and reduce stress in their lives. And when they do that, and when they succeed with that, almost all these patients will survive. And they stop the pain and they get healthy. They'll see their children growing up. They see their children get married. They just have to do this. And almost everyone can survive. So it's a matter of life and death. In that case, they obviously want to live. But the numbers show that only 10% of those patients survive. So 90% fails to change their lifestyle. And this leads to very painful and premature death. So that got me thinking, because if change is that hard, even in a life and death situation, then how are we as conversion specialists and the ones responsible for experimentation, how are we going to change the culture, the mindset, and way of working of entire organizations? Unfortunately, there have been quite a lot of studies and good books on change management. And that's when I started combining our knowledge as CRO specialists and experimentation specialists with change management, because we already know quite a lot about change. So I started combining theories, and indeed came up with this model, which in the basis is indeed System 1 and System 2, which probably a lot of listeners will know from the book from Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. So System 1 is a metaphor for our rational brain. It's a part of the brain that can reason and think in the past, present, and future. And for change to succeed, it has to be smart enough. It has to know how to change. It has to know what to do. So if you want organizational change, for System 1, educate your colleagues. But we know that's not enough, right? We can tell our colleagues how to do experiments. We can tell them that big tech companies do it, that our competitors do it, but it does not result in lasting change and a shift in culture and way of working. So we also have, so that was System 2. We also have System 1, our primal brain. That's our old primal strong brain. That part of the brain, it cannot reason and it cannot think in the past, present, and future. It's our subconscious brain. And rule of thumb is that 95% of our decisions are made by System 1. So System 2 is rational brain. System 1 is our primal brain. And if you want System 1 on board, it should be motivated. We need to motivate the System 1s of our colleagues. So there are a couple of things you can do. it needs autonomy. You need to make experimentation accessible because it does not like to put in the extra effort. Set small changes. It doesn't like big changes. But other than that, it's really hard to motivate System 1. It's really difficult. And when change fails, it is often caused by System 1 not being motivated and not working together with System 2. So you can think about it when on a Sunday morning, you set your alarm clock early in the morning to go for a run before having breakfast with your family. So the night before, System 2 sets the alarm clock because it can think like, okay, tomorrow wake up early and can go for a run. And if I keep that up, in 6 months, I'm going to be healthy and fit and well trained. Now, when the alarm clock rings on a Sunday morning, that's when you feel System 1 and System 2 fighting together. System 2 knows I have to get up because I have to go for a run. Right now, I get fit, I get in shape. And when I'm back, I can have breakfast with my family. But System 1, the primal brain, it cannot think in the past, present, and future. It doesn't care about getting fit. It doesn't care about going for a run. It only knows that you're in a very comfortable bed, your head resting on a pillow, and all it wants to do is turn off the alarm clock and get some more sleep. So System 2 wants to get out of bed. System 1 is the strong part of the brain that wants you to stay in bed and sleep. So that's the struggle we see in that morning, which probably a lot of people recognize, but also with organizational change, personal change. It's that struggle that makes change very hard. And to create lasting change, we want System 1 and System 2 to work together. Long story.
It's a great overview, and yet highlights why it's necessary for teams and programs to be able to draw on both of those elements of human psychology if they want their organizational change program to be effective.
Yeah. Yeah, so and to make them work together and motivate System 1, that's why I introduced this model.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a good way of framing it up. So thinking about introducing the 4-quadrant model that you found effective in eliciting change for experimentation programs. So what are the key elements of that 4-quadrant model?
Yeah, so to have System 1 and System 2 work together, we need to tweak our environment because that's how we motivate System 1 and have them work together. So we can tweak the physical environment, we can tweak the social environment, we can set rules and norms, and we can provide rewards and incentives. And with those four, when we tweak those four and we think about it for our organization, that's when System 1 and System 2 can work together. And that's how we can get to organizational change and a culture of experimentation.
So it's about attacking it from every angle to try and get the maximum output.
Precisely.
So let's talk a little bit more specifically about the physical environment. What are some of those core elements that people should consider for unlocking the physical environment?
Yes. So as mentioned, I tried to get theories from change management and combine with our knowledge. And especially when working on A/B testing experimentation, we tweak the physical environment of our website visitors every single day with the goal to change their behavior. So we actually already know this. We're experts at this because we can also simply use that idea, that mindset, to tweak the physical environment in our office. So we can test with sending update emails with insights from our experiments to our colleagues. We can apply gamification. We can create accessible data dashboards and place them on monitors throughout the office. Of course, when your office opens again due to Corona and such, you can share a forum for which colleagues can easily hand in their test ideas. Another nice example is a Phil trophy, which I recently read in an article. At Amazon, they have a Phil trophy for someone who breaks the website badly. And it's seen as a badge of honor because this person did and tried something so bold, it broke the website. And he gets to place this Phil trophy on his desk and he will get praised for it throughout the week. It's a perfect example of a physical tweak.
Yeah, very good example there. I'd also read the example about the Amazon fail trophy as well.
Exactly.
For some of those elements there, we talk about gamification, so guess the test type concept, which I've seen to be very effective with teams, and it's highly engaging because it illustrates that majority of the time that we're very bad at guessing the quality of our own ideas. And are there any other of those elements that you mentioned that you've found have really good cut through with organizations, or a case of depending on the organization?
Yeah, again, and as a good consultant, the answer is always it depends. Like I said in the beginning, we have to use our experimentation mindset here as well. For instance, I also see some bold statements that dashboards early in experimentation maturity should not be shared with the organization, because then they see data, but they're not used to seeing data, so they'll draw the wrong conclusions based on what they see, and they make the wrong decisions. It could be the case, but for one of my former employers, I was the first Euro specialist. There was no experience yet with data-driven work at all. But I placed a dashboard with some general numbers at the entrance, so everyone would see data several times a day. And there was some basic numbers like page views per section on the website and a number of people on the website. And it really worked because it was a live analytics dashboard, so the numbers flashed on every update. So when you walk past it, it automatically draws your attention. So people got to see data. But also some internal competition arose because page views are quite understandable. And I showed the page views per section for each product team. So when your product team has the most page views, that section of the website, you of course go to the other product team and they started teasing each other. But I think the most impactful one was that visitors also got to see the dashboard. And they automatically assumed that the whole organization is data-driven. So every meeting with a visitor, including the meetings from board of directors who see visitors on a daily basis, this started with visitors stating like, that's so awesome that the organization is data-driven. So all of a sudden, the board of directors started hearing your organization is data-driven, and it really got them involved and triggered. So more of the story is see what works for your organization and what doesn't. For me, the dashboard there worked very well. But I can also imagine that people draw wrong conclusions based on the data, and it doesn't work in other organizations. So experiment.
That's a fantastic example. So thinking about the social environment, what are some of the elements of the social environment that people should consider?
Good one. And also here, social environment, we know this, right? As optimizers, we know from our A/B test, from blogs, from presentations, we know the power of social proof. Ratings, reviews, testimonials, success stories, you see them everywhere. So again, we have this knowledge, and now we can apply it in our organization to get to a culture of experimentation. So create a community of enthusiasts and promoters of experimentation, host brainstorm sessions, celebrate successes and especially failures together, have colleagues watch usability tests together. Everything that you can do to involve people, get them together, and create a community to create social proof in your organization. And I think one of the most important things to understand and to see is that the most important person in the social environment is you. I mean, you're also part of the social environment. If you're going to be like very demanding, very system 2 driven, you have to do this because Booking does it and the competitors do it, you're not getting anywhere. Most of you will know Cialdini, 6 Principles of Cialdini. 2 of those apply to you as a person in your organization. Be a likable authority. So be passionate, but humble. Be approachable, show interest in others. And as mentioned, respect people, respect their opinion, and help them achieve their goals with experimentation instead of trying to achieve your own goals.
Yeah, fantastic summary there. Be humble, be curious, be approachable, be collaborative, and bring the organization together and rally around experimentation. rather than being, as you stated earlier, to be locked away in the closet.
Exactly.
Okay, rewards and incentives. This is a really interesting dimension there of the quadrant. So what are some of the effective strategies that you've seen to align organizational rewards and strategies for those incentives?
Yeah, so rewards can really make new behavior stick. It's pairing something we want with something we have to do. And there are, of course, a couple of examples we can have there. We can tie nice rewards to our Which Test One competition. We can celebrate, again, failures and success together with free food and free drinks. But also nominations for external awards can really work, because if you get nominated for an external award, it is a recognition of that you're doing a good job, and you can take it with you within the company. But you can also tie experimentation to a salary increase, for instance, with your personal assessments. And it's very important to have consistent rewards. If your organization states you have to experiment, but failure is not something we want. Of course, with experiments, you're going to fail, or you're going to make changes that don't work. So if you on one side say you have to experiment, but failure is not accepted, then rewards contradict, and it results in less experimentation. One case I've seen really work was last year with a client. And with the team, we had the goal to involve more people. We wanted more test ideas to test, to come from the organization itself. We want to have them think about how can we improve the product, how can we more align with our customers and the problems they face on our platform. And we tried a couple of things. We shared a forum to hand in the test ideas during meetings, during update emails and presentations. But maybe we got one or two ideas. That's when we started to work with the rewards and incentives. We set up an idea competition, and we had 3 rewards. One for individual reward, the best test idea, and it was a health workshop. We had team awards. One team award for the team that handed in the most and best test ideas, and another individual reward for the one with the highest average points per test handed in. And they were quite nice rewards. So I think we had a budget of, let's say, €700, which is, I guess, $900 US. And that really, and because of the internal competition for teams and individuals, it really started to become big and huge within the organization. We received test ideas from 50% of the organization. And I think on average 3 test ideas per person. It's almost all of a sudden everyone was involved because we had nice rewards tied to it. And the nice thing is we know who handed in the test ideas. So when we start testing their ideas, we can notify them. We automated everything, of course, to increase the quantity so we have more time for more experiments. But we notify people automatically when their idea becomes tested and what the result is. And when it results in a winner, we can, for instance, bring a cake to their departments, which they can share, which keeps experimentation top of mind. So that was a very successful case with rewards and incentives.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that when the organization contribute ideas to innovation, product development and experimentation, that it's really important to keep them on the journey and to keep them updated on the progress and the outcomes with their ideas. Not only does it provide them with development opportunities to grow and expand their skill and capability, but it then also continues to build that flywheel so that next time that there's a request for ideas, that people are really willing to continue to provide ideas because they know they're valued and they're providing outcomes for the business.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other ones that really interests me as well is more formally connecting those rewards and incentives back to people's development plans and their annual review plan. And I've experienced this personally myself, that with an experimentation program, that initially that those rewards and incentives were not aligned to the success and growth of the experimentation program, and drove behaviors that were counterintuitive to the growth of the experimentation program. That those rewards and incentives were largely aligned around delivery of product and features. So it effectively drove a launch culture and a feature factory. However, it wasn't until probably 2 years later that those rewards and incentives were more tightly aligned to the experimentation program and valued exploration, discovery, and learning over delivery, that there was a real shift in the alignment of those behaviors to the growth of the experimentation program. And I think that this is a challenging one for organizations because on one hand, we need product teams delivering value for customers, but also on the other hand, that we also need them exploring and discovering and learning through experimentation in an iterative manner. So it's quite challenging to strike an even balance between both of those dimensions.
Very, very much. I think it's an excellent example. And we have to keep in mind that, of course, rewards and incentives don't have to necessarily cost a lot of money. It can also be a symbolic reward. If we look at one of my clients, as you mentioned, developers always deliver stuff. And then when there's an impact and an increase in growth, then product owners start presenting on what they achieve with their team. At that client, we decided to have developers not present the things they delivered, but the impact they made with their deliveries. So all of a sudden, the developers got a stage. Everyone got to see the impact they actually made, but also developers themselves saw the impact they made instead of simply what they delivered. And that's when they also get more involved and are more proud and think about the impact they make and come up with suggestions themselves.
Yeah, it's more motivating for the team that their work is rewarded and valued and having commercial impact for the organization.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's think about the last element of the quadrant, rules and norms. What advice would you have for listeners on rules and norms?
Yeah, so rules and norms can be a bit more challenging for CRO specialists, for instance. But rules and norms can make certain behaviors mandatory, which is, of course, think about the current COVID situation. Over the last 2 years, we've shown very different behavior due to all the governmental regulations regarding COVID, wear face masks, keep your distance, 1 meter, 2 meters, lines on the floor where to stand. And the same applies to the workplace, actually. Arrive at work on time, clean up your desk at the end of the day, come prepared to a meeting, and hopefully at some point do an A/B experiment for every change to the website. But norms, and especially rules, generally come from higher management. So again, it's very important to involve higher management as soon as possible. And for instance, higher management can again tie rewards, experimentation to personal assessments. But also from what is so within online dialogue where I work, what someone did was she set up a fuck up Friday, is what we call it. So on the last Friday of each month, between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m., everyone closes their laptops, everyone stops working, and we share our biggest fuck ups of that month together. And the other colleagues respond, of course, with a bit of laughter because it's always fun, but also applause, empathy, and hey, is there still something we can help you with? And this creates a very safe environment to fail. So it really sets the norm that failure is okay. And of course, this helps people to take risks, to experiment, and not stay on the safe side always.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I'm seeing this to be a common theme across many successful experimentation programs, that there's open forums of sharing where there's a normalization of failure. And over time, that normalization of failure can then shift and change that culture to, as you pointed out, an acceptable risk-taking culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so thinking about your pieces of advice for organizations that are just getting started with experimentation, they're on that runway. What are some of those key pieces of advice you'd give them to try to shift the organization and to manage that organizational change process?
Yeah, good one. So it's basically a summary of what we mentioned. We have to understand that we already have a lot of knowledge. Most of us know about, or some of you know about System 1 and System 2. We tweak the physical environment of our website visitors every single day with our experiments, with the goal to change their behavior. We know about the influence of social proof. See it in our A/B testing on our website. See it on all big websites we get to. And we also know, for those who know Cialdini and the 6 principles, we know about likability and authority. And that applies to us as a person within our working environment. But most importantly, as mentioned a couple of times, we also know how to experiment. We have that mindset. We have that experimentation, optimization mindset. And we should apply that in this case as well in our organization. Find out what works for your board of directors, for your other colleagues. Find out, experiment how to involve them. And of course, you're going to fail sometimes. Maybe people will hate your update email and straight away send it to their spam folder, for instance. But then try something else. It's very important to understand that there's no 5, 6, or 7 steps to get to an experimentation culture. Otherwise, it would be easy and every company would have done it. And then this podcast would not be so interesting. So the thing is, sit with your team or experimentation enthusiasts and brainstorm ideas based on this model and plan and start experimenting. We already plan our A/B tests. Also plan your experiments within your organization and make it part of your stand-ups. So people take responsibility and you can learn and see what works and doesn't work.
Excellent point. Just to elaborate on that final point there about understanding what's learned, that I think a good way to think about the experimentation program change process is also more formally as well. So thinking about that communication and change process, what is the communication and change strategy? Who do you need to speak to? When do you need to speak to them? What do you need to speak to them about? And what are the channels that you're going to utilize to be able to access all of these stakeholders at every level of the organization? And every stakeholder group will have different needs and expectations and types of information they'll require. So I even think that formally sitting down and mapping out that strategy is also a very useful exercise for experimentation teams, and not to underestimate the communication and change process.
Exactly.
So fast 3 closing questions now. Do you have an example of an experiment that you've performed that reframed organizational thinking or organizational perspective?
Love this one. Often it's not one A/B test, of course. It's never about one A/B test. It's about a whole program. And in general, it's always a series of A/B tests confirming a hypothesis, which gives great insights, which you can share, which are useful for the growth of the organization. But to really answer this question, when you have a redesign, you can have this one A/B test that changes people's perspective and beliefs about experimentation. So last year for a client, we had an experiment. They were going through redesign, a migration, new backend. And one of the plans was to have the checkout in one full page. So the whole form in one page instead of several steps. And we tested that checkout. So several steps, several pages, and one long form, which was the plan for the redesign. And the long form resulted in a conversion drop of 12%, which is a lot of money. So when we presented this to the board, they really understood that, okay, experimentation is important and we cannot just do a redesign without experimenting first, because that would have cost a lot of money.
Excellent example. Number 2, top 3 resources. So book, blog, some sort of document that you'd recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, so number 1, the one that I like the best myself is events. Go to events and not just learn from the speakers on stage, but also share knowledge and learn together with the audience. Talk to each other, share experiences, and learn from each other. That's a very, very valuable source of information. Second resource, newsletters. I have a newsletter on my website with a free book, but also other curated newsletters like Experimentation newsletter or Experimental Mind are excellent resources. They scan the web for good articles and they send them to you. Saves you, again, a lot of time. And for change management in general, my favorite book is Switch from the brothers Heath. I can definitely recommend reading that.
Excellent. And last one, where can listeners reach you if they'd like to get in contact?
Well, everyone's always free to contact me because I love hearing stories and sharing experiences and learning together. So everyone is more than welcome to add me connect with me on LinkedIn. I post something on LinkedIn every single week about experimentation and experimentation culture. And everyone is always free to email me at ruben@conversionideas.com. More than welcome to hear from you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Ruben. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all from this episode of Experimentation Masters. Just one more thing before we say goodbye. We can use your help to keep improving the show. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, you can email at gavin@firstprinciples.ventures. Visit firstprinciples.ventures for show notes, resources, and information. If you enjoyed this show, give us a share on social media. Make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Experimentation Masters. Lead with more confidence.